Hey guys, this is Erica, the Love Coach.
And this is Leash, the Chakra Queen. And you are tuned in to the Let It Go Sis podcast. Let it go, sis!
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about self-love, what it means to us, and what it means to have a lack of self-love. With that said, Alicia, what does self-love mean to you?
That's a good question. Self-love to me is when you choose yourself first. Also, when you don't sacrifice your own happiness to please other people. I also feel like it's when you don't need validation from others because you already feel that way about yourself. You don't need other people to let you know how to feel. So I have a story.
There's always a story
There's
with
always
us.
a story, right? So I was dating this guy. And at this time, I had lost like 60 pounds. And I was feeling myself. I was looking really good. I was just like, wow, I was so proud of myself. And I knew this guy from high school, too. So at the time, it was like a long time after high school. So he knew me when I was bigger. And now he knows me as, smaller when we were dating. And I remember we were walking home from somewhere one day. And he's just like, yeah, you look really good. He was like, all you need now is a fat ass.
Wow.
And I was just like...
Did that make you feel some way?
Yeah, it made me feel insecure. I was just kind of like, damn, like I was feeling myself. I thought I was looking cute that day, everything. And it's just like, it's just never enough. Like now you need a fat ass. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of just like, and even if you felt that way, you didn't have to say that to me in that moment. It was just kind of like, so, like all my friends know me. Like I'm always joking around like, oh, I'm getting my ass done and stuff like that. But low key, I be serious.
And I'm getting a tummy tuck.
I'll be dead serious though. But it's funny because I'm feeling like the older I'm getting and the more that we have been healing, like, the last couple of months, I'm starting to like feel like, you know what, I am who I am. This is my body, learn to accept myself,
Right.
So that's pretty much, what I feel like self-love is. And, because a lot of the time, what gets on my nerves, like when I go on Facebook and stuff and I see guys like, oh, you girls with the lashes and the wigs and all of this stuff and just complaining and it's just like, but those are the same guys that say like a girl with the toit or whatever you want to call the little ponytail, like, oh, you need to do something with your hair. But then when she does it, it's a problem. Now it's like, oh, but y'all got wigs and lashes. But it's the same thing. Like, I've had somebody say to me before, like, why you always got all that makeup on? And I'm like, because I like my makeup for myself. But I feel like it enhances my beauty. And it's like, I remember being on FaceTime with the same person, and they're like, oh, you look tired. And I'm like, no, I just don't got no makeup on.
Oh, my God. But see, it's things like that and people that put you down or make you feel a way that cause insecurities.
Right.
And cause us to lack self-love. Not saying that, it's someone else's fault. We should love ourselves.
Right, regardless.
Yeah, but I think people saying hurtful things, contributes to us having insecurities and lacking self-love.
Right. It's true because especially when you grow up around or you're around other women who are society's standard of beautiful, and you hear people like, you're so beautiful, and then they look at you and it's just kind of like, oh, you cute, like you're right, you would be better if you had this, oh, you need to look like this, or your friend is this, like, you know what I'm saying? So it makes you feel away. It does. You feel like, damn, why can't my body be like that? Or you know what I'm saying? So it kind of really does suck. Like a lot of it, it's like, yeah, you should love yourself, but society does play a big role on how we feel. Social media, it's like, it's really hard to just be okay with yourself when social media tells us all what beauty is. And if you don't have that, then you fall short of it. So...
But speaking of insecurities, it's funny because I was actually speaking to someone in my coach Shamina's class. She was talking about self-love. Same thing you just said, that she had this body image about herself, like she didn't like her body. And she was like, sometimes I was jealous of all the pretty girls. And I told her, I'm like, what's crazy? Like, pretty girls have insecurities too, because I was one of the people who, I didn't have like an issue with my body, but at the same time I was like, wait, I must not be that good looking because I'm getting cheated on. I'm getting left for other girls. And it's just like, so why? So insecurity is a big thing for everyone. It's not, you know what I mean? You don't even have to have issues with your looks. Anything that someone says or does to you that hurts you, can make you feel like you're not good enough.
Exactly. That's the truth.
So my definition of self-love, I would say, is not necessarily a definition, but just how I feel about self-love is you have self-love when you no longer tolerate the same bullshit. I'm going to say it just like that.
Okay, because that's...
Yes. I mean, I know for a fact that when I was in certain relationships, I did not love myself at all. And it's not just, like I said, it's not always just about looks or feeling insecure, but it's also about what you tolerate. You know that saying that says, what you allow will continue. When you allow people to treat you bad, that's a lack of self-love.
Right. That is true.
When you allow yourself, I think you said in the beginning, when you allow people to treat you a certain way, when you're putting someone else's happiness before yours, that's a lack of self-love. Because if you loved yourself, you would make sure that you were happy, you're good, you know?
Right.
One example for people, because I know me, myself, back in the day, all my friends would be like, stop looking for a man, you need to love yourself first. I didn't understand what... You were one of the people who said that.
A lot of people don't understand that. It's so true. A lot of people don't understand what that means.
And I always thought it was like you just care about yourself. And I'm like, I do love myself. I take care of myself. I make sure I eat. I make sure whatever. I make sure I do my hair. I look, I look nice. But that's not what self-love is. You know, at the end of the day, I didn't have self-love because I continuously ended up in toxic situations, and I was sitting here complaining and crying, and it's just like, do I really love myself? Because if you look at self-love, okay, another way I look at self-love is just unconditional love for yourself. So the same way like a parent would love their kid unconditionally, if you have a daughter, you don't want, a guy treating her bad. You don't want people bullying her in school. So it should be the same way. If you love your kid unconditionally, why don't you love yourself unconditionally? That's what I feel like self-love is. When you stop tolerating the bare minimum or even something really bad, that's when you finally love yourself. And that's when I realized that I loved myself. Like recently, when I realized that the people I dated, I'm like, after the first sign, I'm like, no, you gotta go. Because I love myself now. Whereas before, I had such low self-esteem and, like you said, insecurities. I didn't know. I wanted to fill that void, as you always say. I wanted to fill that void with anybody. And an example of that is I used to date this guy. At the time, obviously, they tell you they're single. And we got to know each other. We vibed, like our energy matched, like everything was great. And then here comes a girl on Facebook messaging me like, how do you know so-and-so? I didn't know who she was. So I was like, oh, he's just my friend. And she's like, oh, well, we have a kid together and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, here we go again. Because if y'all remember in episode 1, that's what happened. Every situation. So she started telling me, we've been together for such and such amount of time. We just had a kid. And of course I was upset. I was hurt. She was telling me, oh, I don't want him anymore. You can have him. You know how females get. And I was just like, whatever. I remember like meeting up with him after that. And I was like, I don't even care. Like, that's how bad my lack of self-love was. That I knew he was in a relationship with this girl. And I was like, all right, like, I'll still deal with you. And looking back on it now, I'm just like, why would I do that? Like, what made me not love myself so much that I'm like, I'm tolerating a man who's in a relationship? Because, like, obviously I want my own man. So
obviously I want my own man.
So why was I okay with that? And I feel like a lot of people have been in that situation where they've dated people in relationships, maybe not knowingly at first, but they get into it, some girl contacts them, or you just find out somehow, and you're like, I'm gonna stay with them because the feelings are already there, or you're attached. The attachment we talked about earlier is like, it's a toxic attachment. So
I was in a similar situation.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
Okay.
I dealt with someone who I knew had a girlfriend. I knew the entire time, actually. Like, he told me from the beginning.
Oh, wow. See?
Yeah.
Toxic.
See? Toxic. Well, see, and it's so funny because that's something I say to myself now. Like, yo, I would never do that in my current mental state. Like, I did that right after a breakup. I had a breakup, and I was just, it was probably like a really weak moment for me. And but the crazy part about it is I was dealing with him. I dealt with him for a really long time, and actually, at some point, his girlfriend knew about me. So, what does that say about both of us?
we both lack
self-love. Both of us were like, and it was crazy because me and her never got into an argument, nothing. It was like we both were okay with the fact that this man was sleeping with both of us.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Like, I was okay with it. Was so weird. Like, it got to a point where we were all in a group chat talking to each other. And this man is like, listen, I love the both of y'all. What are we going to do? And honestly, at the time, I was just kind of like, yo, I'm with it. But now I'm like, why, as you said, I want my own man. Like,
exactly.
And it's so funny because there's a lot of like stuff about polys going around now.
I was just gonna say that was like, y'all should have just been in a poly relationship.
Right, that's what he was trying to do. And I was kind of like, okay, let's try this, but it didn't really work out because I honestly knew that she really wasn't with it, but she wasn't really outspoken about it. She was just kind of, I can tell by the way, she just maneuvered around conversations and stuff.
That kind of showed that she was in a toxic relationship
right.
as well, because you're tolerating that.
Exactly.
Why is she okay with her man wanting to... Yeah.
And that's what makes me feel like it's okay to do what I'm doing with your man.
Right, exactly.
Because it's kind of like, sis, like, but then it's just like, leash, come on. It's this whole big thing. So now with this whole talk about polys and stuff, like, there were times where I kind of was like, you know what? Because, listen, I done been through a lot of stuff. And I'm like, if this is the man I got to be with, he got to be with somebody else. Let's just do it. I'm over this. I'm over dating. But now that I'm healing and stuff like that, I'm just like, no, I deserve someone to choose me.
Right.
And be faithful
and
to me.
You.
And respect me and be loyal to me. I deserve that, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the poly relationship. To each their own. If that's what you guys are doing, okay, have fun.
We love it.
If you love it. Exactly. But it's not for me. I feel like the person I am, I want somebody to choose me the way I'm choosing them. I want them to wake up every morning and choose me.
Right.
So.
And speaking of polys, I actually dated someone who was poly.
Yo, I forgot you were in a poly relationship, sis.
It was... I don't think it got to the point where we were like in a poly relationship together. I think it could have got to that point, but we didn't stay together long enough.
Right.
But what I wanted to say about that is when I first met this person, I knew they were poly. Like, I knew they date multiple people, but I didn't know they were actually in a relationship at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out, I met the other woman and we were cool. Like, we were really cool. And it's crazy, but this kind of goes back. I don't want to say, like, at that time I was, like, doing my coaching and I was healing and stuff, so I don't want to say I completely lacked self-love.
Right.
But I remember, when he asked me, like, are you okay with this? Are you okay with my lifestyle? And I was like, yeah, because at the end of the day, like, men are going to cheat anyway, so at least you're honest. Like, that's what I said. That was my response. And it's kind of like...
That was your insecurities, your lack of self-love, trauma...
Exactly.
It was still all of it. It was still all of that.
Because, like, why would I say that instead of being like, no, there's a man out there who only wants to be with me.
Who's going to choose me. Exactly.
Exactly what you said.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm. It's all lack of self-love. And I know everyone out there has been in a situation where they lacked self-love.
Right. Because, again, not to say anything about poly relationships, there are some people who truly do want a poly, but there are a lot of females out there that are only doing it because...
To please the man.
To please the man, right. And that's lack of self-love, to please someone else. Like, they're not truly happy.
It's like, you want to do it. If you're a woman and you like women, then cool, do it. You know what I'm saying? But if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it because they
to
want
please
you to
the
do
man
it.
because you want that man, or because you want that man to love you. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's somebody out there for you.
Right.
And that goes back to what you said before, with like where people don't like understand what loving yourself means. It means like you can't not love yourself and expect someone else to love you. Mm-hmm. Because there's no way for you to connect with a person if you don't love yourself. You're basically going to only connect with people on your vibration.
Mm-hmm,
so
that's true.
Right. So pretty much you're only going to date men or women who treat you like shit if you're treating yourself like shit, because that's what you feel like you deserve. You feel like you deserve being treated like shit. So we're not saying that you can't be loved if you don't love yourself first. We're saying you're going to attract unhealthy love because you're unhealthy.
You're going to stay in bad relationships
and it's going to be a cycle.
Don't love yourself. Yep.
Right. You're going to be in cycles of bad relationships. And it's like, oh, why me? Why me? Because you don't love yourself. And you're connecting with people on the same level of love that you have for yourself. And that's just what it is. So it's really important. This is something, and again, we talked about this. Like, we both thought we loved ourselves until recently. We're just like, oh my God, like, do we love ourselves? Like, why are we still having these attachments to people and stuff like this? And it's like the more we're healing and filling our own voids with the own thing, like the things that we love, or like the podcast and stuff like that. We're learning. This is
why we wanted to start the podcast. Like, we felt like this is something that we want to do. We want to like share our stories so other people can relate, and it might help them as well. This is something that can fulfill us. That is not us just sitting here focused on pleasing someone else. It's making us happy because we like what we do.
Exactly. Right. So,
go ahead. Sorry.
So what do you feel like for somebody who lacks self-love? How do you feel like they can, heal that, or, what do you suggest them do?
I suggest that they just become self-aware. Like, when you notice that you're dating someone who expects you to make them happy, but you notice that you're not happy, just kind of pay attention to that. Right. And just learn that you deserve better. Learn, say to yourself, like, no, I'm not happy. Not saying that you should just leave every relationship that you're not happy in, because nobody's perfect. Right. But at the end of the day, you can kind of tell. That's why I said become more aware of, like, the people around you who you're dating. Because once you're self-aware, you can tell the difference between people who truly love you and people who are just using you and taking advantage. So my advice for people who feel like they're lacking self-love, just do something different. Stop tolerating what you used to tolerate, you know? Like, if you used to date a certain type of man, stop dating that type of man. Like, date people who make you happy. Healthy relationships are not going to make you depressed. Put it like that. You're going to know when you love yourself, you are not, I'm telling you, like, I'm at a point where, like, the littlest thing, I'm just like, oh, this person's toxic. I see it coming a mile away, and I let them go before it gets to that point. So definitely just pay attention to where you lack self-love in.
Right. And I think also another thing is you have to heal. It goes back to childhood trauma. You have to understand why you don't love yourself. Again, like me telling the stories about, that guy saying to me, like, oh, you would look better if your ass was fat. Things like that get into your subconscious, and you have to start healing the insecurities and realizing you are worth it. And, even parents can say things to us, like, not knowing that they're saying things that stick, So you have to heal those things. Once you heal those things, you'll start to realize I'm worth it. I am beautiful. You have to actually literally love yourself, because at the end of the day, you are the only person you truly have. Yep. So you have to break up and say, Alicia, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Or, you would say your own name, not my name, but but you have to wake up, affirmations and say those things. I love myself. I'm worthy, because other people, it might be a day where everybody is gonna be projecting onto you their bad mood, and you have to be able to take how you feel and put it above what anybody else says. And that's it. So you definitely have to heal and dig deep and see why you do have issues loving yourself.
I wanted to touch on something that you said. You brought up childhood trauma, and you mentioned, like, if a man is talking down to you, like, oh, you're not small enough, or I wish you had a fat ass, that could go back to childhood trauma on his end. Like, maybe his mom or his dad made him feel like he wasn't good enough. So now he treats women that way. Because I know, like, it's not that it's common sense, but like if you watch movies and stuff like that, you'll see like if it's a show about bullying, you'll always kind of find out like the kid who was bullying everyone, they were bullied.
Right, they go home and their father's beating shit out of them.
Like their parents were like really verbally abusive, so now they go and they treat other kids like that. And this actually touches on another episode that we're doing. But yeah, so yeah, a lot of things are childhood trauma. I try to explain that to people, and they're like, everything's not trauma, but it is.
Right, it is.
When you're aware of your traumas, pretty much almost everything is trauma.
Right, you have to understand that the person you are is the person that
your parents molded you
to be. So if you grew up in a toxic environment, you're more than likely going to be a toxic person because you think that that's normal. And I was telling my friend the other day that we live in this world that our parents provide to us as a child, and then all of a sudden we go into the adult world and have to function with a whole bunch of other people who were raised different. So now we're all sitting here like, what the hell? This is not normal. And that's when I feel like the trauma kind of starts sometimes for adults, when you have to realize that everything you knew growing up isn't reality.
Right.
You know, whether you were spoiled, whether you were going through some toxic, you know, whether you had good parents, bad parents, they said I love you, you're going to go into a world full of people who all had different experiences. And with dating too, you have to get into relation and meet other people and try to function together, being two whole different people who grew up in two different homes. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, it's a lot.
That's why healing is important, because in order to have a healthy relationship, you have to learn how to be compassionate of like your partner's traumas. Exactly. You have to be like, okay, I understand what he's going through or what he might be going through, so I'm not gonna like overreact. I'm not gonna, you know, just. It's a lot when it comes to that. And as far as like childhood trauma stuff, again, people don't understand how deep it goes.
Right.
Like,
it goes very deep.
We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do an episode on trauma, especially like childhood trauma.
We have to go into detail because a lot of people don't see how everything is connected to trauma. So we definitely have to do one just focusing on what type of things are connected to trauma.
No, it's true, because I had a friend call me the other day, and she was telling me how she was talking to one of her friends, and she would mention like, oh, this guy has like crazy trauma, and the guy was on the phone like, everything is not trauma. And me and her like, yes it is. Like, what do you think? I think it was you that said something. You might have been talking to somebody and they said everything isn't trauma. I forgot what they said. Oh, sometimes it's just a bad decision. And you're like, where the hell do you think the bad decision comes from?
Exactly.
It comes from trauma.
Exactly.
If you didn't have trauma, why would you make a bad, like, okay, like, we can't say that completely. Like, yeah, people make bad choices, yes. But
it's usually based off of how you were raised.
Exactly, how you're mental. Where's your mental state? That's trauma.
Just like a kid can grow up in a bad neighborhood, how are they going to grow up? They're going to grow up, like, around gangs and violence and shooting and drugs. And then you could put that same kid, and let's say he was born, but he got adopted by a rich family in a completely different neighborhood. He's going to grow up according to how his parents raised him.
Right.
And what's going on around him, and that's what trauma is. So regardless of, you know, whatever, like, if you grow up in a household where everyone is talking down to you, you're going to lack self-love when you get older, because you're going to be looking for your partner to fulfill you in those ways. Like, if your mom, like this, I think you said something like this, like, when you're in a family that's not saying I love you all the time, or hugging, kissing, you're looking for a man or a woman to do that for you, and then you actually end up attracting the opposite because of your trauma.
And I was going to say that, it's funny you said that, because what happens is, that's just like, you know, as you just mentioned, like, if you grow up in a home where somebody talks down to you, or like, you know, we don't say I love you and stuff like that, you go looking for that because you don't have it. But what happens also is, because you're not used to it, it's foreign. So if you don't heal that, now you're looking for it, but you're finding it, but you're pushing those people away because you're not used to it. And then you're, again, connecting with the trauma bond, the people who talk down to you. And because you lack the self-love from the childhood trauma, you're dealing with people who talk down to you because that's normal to you, but it's unhealthy. It's a cycle you need to break, you know? So it all coincide. It all connects. Yeah, like childhood trauma, self-love.
But it does. So we gotta explain that for them. We gotta break it down on
the
next episode.
Seriously. Yes, definitely.
I think one time me and you went out with a bunch of people and they were telling us about like their situation in their relationship, and I remember them saying, oh, it's just normal relationship stuff. And we looked at each other like, that's not normal. That's
not normal.
It's normal to you, but it's not normal if you were in a healthy relationship.
Right. That's true.
And it's crazy, but it's funny how me and you can like tell when someone lacks self-love.
Right.
Like we could just be sitting there with a random person we met for the first time and they tell us their life story.
Yeah.
Or just something
which
that's
always
going on.
happens to us, by the way. Right. People always tell us their life stories randomly.
Yeah, this is why I decided to be a life coach, because I'm like, might as well be. But yeah, like we can just sit with someone for about like 10, 15 minutes and be able to tell you like, no, you lack self-love, or that relationship's toxic. And they're just like, wait, what?
Like, what
and then they're
about?
like, oh shit, they're right.
Right.
Like, they didn't realize that what they were going through was not healthy and it wasn't normal.
Right.
It was normal in maybe a toxic household, but not for people who are actually healed or healing.
Right, because now you have to realize we're out here dating each other. You know, we're in a world we're dating each other. We're trying to find love in each other, and you have to realize you may push away something that's good for you because of lack of self-love and, you know, from childhood trauma again. And it's like, you know, we all have to heal. You know, that's the only way to spread the love around. But it all starts with loving yourself first. You know, and even to start the healing process, you have to start loving yourself, because that's what makes us want to heal. We want to heal when we're like, why do I keep going through this? I deserve more. So
I want to be happy.
I want to be happy.
I'm tired of being miserable. That's
right.
What we
Exactly. I'm tired of being miserable. And it's funny because I have someone who I had a conversation with him a little while ago, and he used to tell me all the time, like, you need to heal, you need to heal, you need to heal. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm healed. Because not for nothing, even though my family, we didn't say the words I love you, we came from really spoiled. We're spoiled. Let's just put it out there. I'm spoiled. And my parents didn't say the words I love you, but the actions were there. Like, my parents were dope as hell. Like, anything I wanted to do in my life, like my company, like artist photography, anything, they always supported me, always motivated me. You know, like, my parents were really dope. It's just we didn't say those words. That's all it was. You know, we just didn't say the words I love you, but I knew they loved me. Right. You know?
This goes back to actions and paying attention.
Right.
Sometimes the words don't match, but you know.
Right. So basically when he would say you need to heal, I'm like, what are you talking about? I grew up perfect. My life was perfect. I've seen people out here with fucked up lives, you know? And I'm like, my life was perfect. And it wasn't until I started doing my healing, I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much just simply not saying the word I love you impacted me as far as, you know, childhood trauma. And I don't like saying childhood trauma sometimes because a lot of people take that word very negatively. Right. But
like they think it's abuse.
Right. It's not always abuse. Right. It could just be a lack of something.
I explained to someone the other day, they said, oh, you know, everything's not trauma. And I said, well, I found a definition and it said trauma is any situation that causes physical or emotional pain. Right. So it could be any type of like toxic situation that you're in. If it causes you emotional pain, not just physical pain, and you have that memory of it, that flashback, that's what triggers are.
Right, exactly. That's definitely, I can't wait to do this episode about trauma. Said the word trigger.
This is like our favorite thing.
Because it's the root of everything. It's literally the root of every action. As humans, it's literally trauma or, you know, how we were raised. Like, you know.
I wanted to say something about, you said we grew up like with parents who spoiled us. And it's funny because that can also cause issues in your adulthood. Not necessarily like bad, but okay, let me just give you an example. So like, you come from a spoiled household, so then you grow up expecting that people are supposed to treat you like that, and then when you don't get that treatment, you're like, what the hell? And I think that's why that also causes some of our relationship trauma, because it's like, well, I had my parents together, why can't I find love like my parents, or why can't I be married like my parents? or this is what happened in my childhood. It was like a good thing, but now it's like, why can't I find that person that gives me what I had growing up? Right. So it's just a whole big thing, and this is why people need to do their trauma healing,
right,
and learn how to be compassionate and learn how to understand everybody's different personalities.
Because we all gotta function together. Mm-hmm. We're in the world. Look, we're gonna heal the world. We're here to love each other. Mm-hmm. And this is going back to generational curses. Sometimes you have to forgive your parents for these things. And I've had a conversation with my mother about, us not saying I love you in household. And that's what she said. She didn't say I love you in her household. So it's literally just trickle down effects, until that somebody has to heal it at some point, So it's kind of like, if I have kids one day, that's something I know because I want to break that cycle. It's not necessarily something that has to be looked at negatively, all you just have to do is just heal it, just fix it, right. And it's just so funny going back to that story with the with my friend. It's just kind of like, it wasn't until I started really realizing that my life was perfect within the world of my life, not as far as needing to function with other people. And I had a conversation with him like, yeah, I'm starting to love myself. And he's like, I've been telling you this the whole time. You need to love yourself. Right. And I'm like, yo, it's crazy because we're unaware. Like you said earlier, we have to become aware. You have to become aware that you're not fully, you don't fully love yourself. Or like you said, oh, I love myself. I get dressed every day. I put on my makeup every day. Yeah. Right. That's not what we mean.
And it's funny how you said that, like, someone else had to tell you, like, you need to heal. Like, other people are aware of what we don't see. I remember one time we were in this group chat, and someone in the group chat said, I think I was like spazzing out on somebody, and they were like, Erica, you need to heal. You need to heal. And I was like, no, I don't. You need to heal.
Right.
And looking back on that situation, I'm like, yo, I did need to heal. That was before I was on this spiritual journey and everything. So I wasn't even thinking. I'm like, I don't need to heal anything. Like, what are you talking about? I'm just mad because you pissed me off.
Right.
But little did I know it had to do with trauma. It had to do with being triggered. That person, whatever they said to me at the time, it triggered me because of something that happened in my childhood, most likely. And I brought it into my current situation. Right. And it's just crazy that everyone can see where you need to heal. Right. But then we can't see what we need to heal ourselves. Right. Now we can.
And it's so true. No, it's so true, because you can date someone and be like, yo, what's wrong with you? Because that's not normal from your life. So it's like, bro, that's not right, because it's not how you were raised. So you're looking at it like, okay, this is how you're supposed to say the words I love you, and why can't you say that? Why can't you be intimate? You know what I'm saying? This is normal. Being intimate is normal. But like, okay, I have another story. I have a friend who I spoke to, and he basically was saying, like, he feels like his girlfriend is very clingy. And, and I had to explain to him a little bit, like, me and him grew up in, like, similar households where we didn't say the words I love you, we weren't hugging each other, we weren't lovey-dovey like that. But she grew up in a household that's lovey-dovey and huggy like that. So it's not that she's clingy, she's just used to that, and you're just not.
Right.
Right. So it's like she's expecting everybody, like we mentioned, everybody to be like her household. And this is where shit kind of gets fucked up. I had another friend tell me the other day that, because I talk to everybody about childhood trauma. This is my life, right? So
just us.
So I spoke to her, and she said that her parents were lovey-dovey as well, and they gave her a false reality where she feels like all relationships are supposed to be like that. Like you said, why can't we find relationships like our parents and stuff like that? So she's like, dating for her is like crazy because she's expecting every man to be like her father. So it's very hard because, again, we have to function together. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot.
Just the other day, I actually spoke to someone and I kept texting them. And then at one point I caught myself saying, oh, I'm gonna let you go about your day. Like, I don't want to bother you. And they were like, you're not bothering me. And I was like, you sure? And they're like, why would you be bothering me? Like, we're having a conversation. And I'm like, oh, my bad. That was my trauma. And they're like, what?
Wow.
And I'm like, I had to explain. I mean, I didn't have to, but like, I felt like I had to tell them, I'm like, it's my trauma because I'm so used to like people in the past telling me, like you said, you're clingy, you need too much attention, you this. So now it's to a point where I'm like, am I bothering you? Like, should I stop hitting you up? You know, whereas before it was like,
yo, you just,
you know, like blowing up their phone. Right. Now I'm starting to not like that goes back to that attachment stuff we were talking about. Like being too attached, and it's like I'm not doing that anymore because I'm healing that part of me, that needing validation, that needing that fulfillment from someone else. So now I'm like worried, like, am I bothering you? And it's trauma.
That's crazy because I did the same thing the other day.
Did you?
Yes, I called someone. I called someone and anonymous, and I was just like, you know, they were basically like, oh, because I was drunk. And like, you never call me when you're sober. And I was just kind of like, I don't know why I need that liquid courage to call. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm sober, I feel like I'm bothering them. And they're like, if you were bothering me, I would let you know that. And like you said, it comes from trauma. It comes from people being like, you need too much attention. Mm-hmm. You need this, you need that. So we've gotten to a point where we're just like, well, let me just wait for you to do it. Because it's just like, I don't want to bother you. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do too much. I don't want to be overbearing. You know, if you want to talk to me, you'll call me, you know? Right. So it's kind of messed up. You just made me realize that when you said that. I was like, yo, I did the same thing the other day.
That's funny. We're always on the same vibration.
Yeah. But we're still healing, you know, as much as we, you know, have healed a lot, and we're self-aware. So once you're self-aware, everything, you notice everything that you're doing. You're like, wait, why did I do this? Why did I say that? And then you start digging deep, like, is that trauma? And you can't stop it, Lord Jesus.
Oh my God, the healing, like, there's days that me and Alicia are like, I'm not healing today.
I don't want to heal no
next
more.
Week. Yeah, and then it happens.
It happens anyway.
Then we're calling each other like, oh my God, I just had a realization. And I'm like, I thought she wasn't healing today, sis.
Like, I'm trying not to heal.
It just comes up. So, what you said though about I lost my thought. About lack of self-love and like like we're so used to people that are saying we're too clingy, we're too attached, or whatever, too needy, that our lack of self-love and our low self-esteem is telling our subconscious mind, oh, you're never going to find someone who doesn't think you're clingy. Right. So that's why when we meet people who don't mind us calling them or texting them all the time, it's like, it's foreign to us, like you said.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, I'm not bothering you? That's crazy.
And then, and I can see that also getting annoying.
What do you mean?
Just being like, oh, I don't want to bother you. Did I do something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
That's annoying. Yeah. That gets very annoying. It's like, oh my God, just hit me up. Like, what do you? So it's like when people say like you're clingy, it's also a projection, and we'll get into projecting. But that is a projecting because that's something that was from their trauma, because and trauma not being a negative word, just meaning like they are not used to somebody needing, you know, that much attention or something, because they didn't get attention when they were younger. So it's just a projection from their childhood onto you, saying you're clingy. It's not really, you are not really the issue.
This goes back to people, like, mainly men, not being affectionate or loving because they never been with anyone who's affectionate or loving. Right. But that also stems back from their family. Mm-hmm. Their parents probably weren't affectionate or loving. So then the people they dated were also like that. And then when they finally meet someone who is affectionate, it's like, what?
They run.
Mm-hmm.
It's foreign.
It's like weird to them.
And that's
just
a
like
whole
us
topic.
being clingy is weird. Like,
that's a whole topic in itself, sis, with men, because
we're not men bashers. But
no, not even. Just not even. Like, what it is that men and women, or boys and girls, are raised completely different. Girls are allowed to feel. Right. Boys aren't. Men
is a
aren't.
whole other topic.
Right. Yeah. So that is like one of the biggest traumas, especially in the Black community. That is one of the biggest traumas, and we'll get into that in our trauma episode, where we'll talk about that, because, you know, my personal belief is that I feel like both should be raised the same, honestly, because a lot of these men are emotionally unavailable because they weren't allowed to feel as children.
They're like, oh, you're a man, be a man, don't do that, don't cry,
don't cry,
express your feelings.
Mm-hmm. So now they're older, and it's time to express themselves in a relationship, and they can't.
Mm-hmm. Or they know how to, but they're scared because they don't want to say something, and then the girl's like, "Oh,
man up."
Because I've had conversations with people who are like, they dated women that when they expressed their feelings, they were like, "Oh, you're soft," or "What?" Like,
but remember, that's
too emotional.
That's a projection. That's again a projection, because the same women grew up in these households with those brothers where their mother was saying that to their brother.
Be a man,
right? Be a man. Do
it's
this.
How they grew up.
Exactly. So now they're dating you, you know, and as a man who expresses yourself, and it's just like, yo, man up, bro. Like, you mad soft and blah blah blah.
But how about you be a woman and accept him having feelings?
Exactly.
Be compassionate. Be a woman. Women are supposed to be
nurturers.
Yes, that's the word.
Impress energy, okay?
Yes. Okay? Feminine energy.
Exactly. Submissive.
Men are supposed to be masculine to a certain extent, but we both have
a balance. It's supposed to be a balance.
Masculine and feminine energy. Right. So a man is allowed to have a little femininity.
That's true. That's the truth. But we'll get into all of that stuff in a different episode, because we talked about a lot today. We talked about like projection. We talked about trauma. What else we talked about?
Self-love, lack of self-love.
Yeah, so we have a whole lot to talk about. I really can't wait to do the trauma episode, because that's the core of all of the stuff that we ever going to talk about on this podcast.
That's how you heal. Is learning about your trauma.
Right. So hope you guys love yourself.
Do something today, tomorrow. You know what? For a week, do something that shows yourself self-love. Whether it's like just getting dressed up for a week, doing your hair and your nails just to make yourself feel. Do something that you don't usually do to make yourself feel good.
Right. Do those affirmations, sis. Every morning, I love you. Talk to yourself in the mirror. I talk to myself in the mirror.
I don't do it in the mirror, but like when I'm driving, I do say my affirmations. Like, you know that song. I feel like that song got really popular, and I like that it came out while we were on our spirit. That song when she says, "I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am rich, I am that bitch." Like, tell yourself that shit every day, okay?
Every day, because you are.
That's self-love. That song is like the definition of self-love.
Right. Dead serious. So, yes, that is the end of this episode. Self-love.
And we will see you right here for the next one.
All right, and we are done.
Don't forget to
let it go, sis.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Let It Go Sis podcast. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Let It Go Sis podcast, and my personal page, Erica Christine.
And my personal page at Artiste Photography and Chakra Queen 222.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.
Bye.